This is going to sound like so much hate, and I swear it's not. Welcome to part 2 of the year in review / look ahead / New Year's celebration, I guess, of the Warner Brothers podcast. How you doing, Keenan?
Great.
Welcome back.
Great.
Welcome back.
We don't want to hash out the conversation we just had, but yeah, great. It was great. We just did something that I was not expecting at all, but it was a fitting way to end 2024, I guess, because this is really going to be 2025. We are a countdown
10
away
minutes
from
away.
the ball dropping.
10 minutes away exactly from the ball dropping. So originally, Keenan and I had some topics, a little quick review of 2024, into a little preview of 2025. By the way, update 9 minutes now. But Keenan, let's get right to it. Do you want to go with a major award first? Do you want to go with moments? How do you want to do this? Do you want to start with 2025? How do you want to do this?
Let's start with last year, and then we'll head into this year. We'll kind of go.
Seems how we're still into 2024.
Into 2024. So I did what we broke down in music and in sports, and then obviously I have like a couple thoughts. So, I kind of touched on some of them prior. So definitely.
Would you like to do the top 3 moments of the year, or would you like to do MVP? I'm gonna leave that up to you.
I'm gonna do MVP. You want to pick sports or music?
I combine both. I did not generalize because
okay.
You'll see. But
so
I did not generalize, but maybe we got both. Go ahead, give me your MVP of 2024.
The MVP, I got my sports one. My MVP is Caitlin Clark, and I think that it's almost unanimous for me. Like, I don't think there's any. Like, I think Patrick Mahomes had himself obviously won back-to-back. He's there. Obviously, you have Ohtani did something that has never been done before and gotten the 50-50 season, plus then also getting and won his first World Series, even though he was injured through it, so he didn't have the greatest of postseasons. You had a lot of people do a lot of different things this year. It's been a great year. Obviously, you had the Paris Olympics, which is going to be in my moment. I don't think that's really saying much, but obviously you had Steph with his incredible last 2 games. LeBron had a great tournament. Simone Biles doing something on unprecedented territory. But there was a reason why Caitlin Clark won AP Female Athlete of the Year and the Time Athlete of the Year. And I think that this year, in 2023, she came in junior year. She put the world on notice of who she is. She put women's college basketball more on notice to your common fan and made people look forward to this year. And what did she do? She outdid herself. She averaged more points. She averaged more rebounds. She broke the record for scoring. She has 44 against LSU, the team that knocked her out last year in the championship game, making Haley Van Lith literally be like, I don't know what to do with this woman. Obviously, she beats Paige Beckers en route to getting to the championship, losing to a South Carolina team that she upset the year before. She puts the WNBA back on the map. They had their best rated season in 24 years since 2001, which is close to the start of the WNBA when that really was getting going there. She pushed everything forward. She is under 30, the biggest basketball star in the world, honestly, in my personal opinion. Like, I truly think it's like LeBron, Steph, Durant, and like she might be like at the back half of the top 5. Like, it's like I think she is a bigger name than like Jokic, and Jokic is clearly the best player in the world when it comes to basketball, just full through. So obviously you have your people like Kyrie is a huge name. So if you want to argue Kyrie to Caitlin, if you're going, I know you like to base it off Instagram followers, fine. That's a different conversation for another day, but she's one of the biggest, and Kyrie's even in the older, so he wouldn't even be in that 30 category. He's another guy who's great, but most assists ever in a game. 3 of the 4 most watched games going along, and then game 5 of the WNBA finals was up there for the season. There's nothing that she didn't do, even her rookie year, where people were like, oh, the league figured her out, and then she just decided to win rookie of the year and was all WNBA first team. So they're already saying, hey, she's a top 5 player in the game. Like, you can't speak enough of what she's done for the sport. They might have their first overseas game. I know that's going to be partly because of her, like their first game outside. I believe in the next couple of years, that's a possibility there, and put just the whole league on notice more. Obviously, a huge topic for shows. We were talking about debate shows on the last one. Huge topics for Caitlin Clark was A Block leading, like I hear every day at work because we have like different calls and everything. I hear a lot of WNBA calls over the Dick Sporting Goods radio. Like we have like different things that go off, like Otani's 50th home run to hit the 50-50 season. It's like a cool thing they kind of did. You get the Caitlin Clark #1 overall draft pick, and we got more WNBA.
You'd get calls. You'd get calls over the intercom if something big in sports happened.
No, sorry. So like it's like pre things that already happened. Like the Red Sox fans waiting long to hear the Boston Red Sox are world champions, which was Joe Buck in 2004 when the Red Sox won the championship. So you get like that call. Hank Aaron when he broke the Babe Ruth record, the 715. Like there's just a random amount of calls, and there's more and more WNBA ones coming on. That has the effect of Caitlin Clark. She has her own basketballs in the store. Like we had a fixture.
Do they have? This is one of my favorite moments of the NBA of the last 10 or so years. Do they have the Rondo Chris Paul fight?
They don't. They actually have no NBA. They have not a single one.
They
have like 8. They have 8 WNBA. They've got like 5 baseball. They've got no football, and they've got no NBA. They've got some random. The women's softball, USA softball, is won for the second year in a row. Like I don't even know.
Now we're just.
I don't know. I don't know. But like, anyways, my MVP of the sports years, Caitlin Clark. I think there's other people. I mentioned Steph, LeBron, Simone Biles, Patrick Mahomes. A lot of people had great
6
years.
MVPs?
No, I'm saying like a lot of people had great years.
Sure.
They're not Caitlin. Caitlin for me was not by far, but like confidently was my #1.
Sure. Well, Keenan, you seem to have done this slightly different than me, but all the same because I have co-MVPs for 2024, and I'm going to guess it's the same 2 people you have if you did it for music, because my 2 MVPs are Caitlin Clark and Kendrick Lamar, or as I just have it in my notes, Kendrick and Caitlin. First name basis because they deserve that.
Lamar
what needs to be said? You're right. What needs to be said though, really, because I mean, you just said it with Caitlin, man. I've never seen anybody from women's basketball like we've had stars from women's basketball, be it Candace Parker, be it Maya Moore,
Cynthia Cooper, if you want to talk like those like back in the Lisa Leslie. Like there's been greats throughout.
Lisa Leslie's a great one. Lisa Leslie's a great one. Like Lisa Leslie was recognizable. Candace Parker was recognizable in part because not only her Tennessee career, but also her McDonald's All-American dunk contest. That's really what put her on the scene. She won the dunk contest. Then we had, like I said, Maya Moore, Diana Taurasi. These are all recognizable names from college, right? Breanna Stewart and Sabrina, they made names for themselves in college. And they all go to the WNBA. And I'm sure, honestly, to some degree, if you looked at maybe their May ratings, I bet they probably had some sort of boost each year these big stars were coming into the WNBA. And maybe it petered out. I don't know. I've never actually looked into the WNBA ratings. Obviously, they weren't great before this year. But I'm going to guess that the ratings were better early on coming off the college season than maybe in the fall when they end towards, week 1 of the NFL, right?
I mean, you have to think too, in May, like when it starts April, May, you see these people, but you're in the midst of the NBA playoffs. And then you go through and
absolutely
you're in the midst of the NBA, like the deep NBA playoffs at that point, late May, early June. So then you have that. Then it's like the middle of the summer where many people are watching sports because it's the first time where everyone's like, oh, we can chill. So it's just baseball. So we can chill unless it's the Olympics or a World Cup. Like we're good to chill. And so like, like in the middle of the year they're there. And then towards the end of the season, it's football season. And you have preseason fantasy football, then into football. And it's like no one really cared. And now she dominated the summer. And their WNBA is going to continue to dominate every summer. other than Olympic summers. But even then, they take a break, so it doesn't make a difference because it's going to be baseball or
And
WNBA.
she'll be playing in the postseason as well.
Yeah.
Or sorry, in the Olympics as well. My alarm just went off. It is officially 2025. So happy New Year from the Warner Brothers podcast. Happy New Year from myself, Kyle, from my brother Keenan. Happy New Year from the Warner Brothers podcast to you listeners, to the viewers. Do a little shot of jalapeno Casamigos right here.
Yeah.
Keenan, happy New Year to you. Happy New
Year.
Year to you. Big things to come. Great things to come. But back to it. We just had that little 30-second break to acknowledge the new year. Let's get back to Caitlin Clark. I could acknowledge, all the great things to come, all the blessings to come in 2025. But
he's back to his T game.
Back to the T. But back to Caitlin Clark. In 2024, which is now just history now. Now it's officially last year, right? We go back to what would be, I believe, March, right? The Final Four. End of March is the Final Four for women's and men's.
Or mid-April, technically. Like March is it's technically mid-April for the Final Four.
I thought it's like the first weekend of April is the end of March into the first weekend. Because I think because mid-April is usually when the playoffs start, and they're at least 2 weeks, a week or two before that.
It was April 7th was the championship game.
Okay. So Final Four was a few days before that. Either way, we had Iowa versus LSU in the Final Four. And I can't say never, but maybe never. That was the first time I can remember not only people talking about the game, but having watch parties for the game, people going out to bars to watch this game. It was truly a moment, Keenan.
That Friday, it was actually, I'm going to semi-correct you, it was actually the Elite Eight. Final Four was UConn, Iowa, but that's fine.
Okay.
But the reason why I say that, the reason why I say that, it was LSU, Iowa on the same day as UConn, USC. So it was Juju versus Paige, and then Caitlin Clark versus Angel Reese. And it was literally watch parties for the day, the night. And it was on a Friday night. So people were booking their schedules around this. I just wanted to add to your point, and Caitlin Clark's the headliner.
And then Final Four was Caitlin versus Paige, right?
Yep.
So I mean, there was reason why I got it confused was because it was just as big a deal the next round.
And it was Caitlin versus South Carolina, undefeated South Carolina. So it was just as big. All three of them were just back to back to back.
It was such a moment, and it was such a throwback to what not only women's college basketball has become, and honestly has been, because they've always been star-studded, but what men's basketball used to be back in the day. That's why men's basketball was so important, because you'd be with these stars for 2 to 3 years. Then you could go to the NBA with them. You had a real history with Shaq before he came into the NBA. It wasn't just, Zion on Instagram. Then you get him for a year at Duke. Oh, that was cool. He played maybe in 6 important games. And then you got him in the NBA, right? It wasn't like that. So it was such a callback to that.
College football reigns supreme and will always.
Sure. To some degree, sure, yeah.
You can grow with these guys for 3 years.
Absolutely. So that's something that women's college basketball is going to have at their advantage. I would imagine that they'll change it eventually to maybe 2 years. And even then, it'll still be good. Even then, it'll still work in their favor. A lot of the major players seem to stay. They don't seem to be transferring as much as the guys in, men's basketball, and certainly in college football. But I say that also to say Caitlin Clark the year before that was a big deal. She was a big deal. Would have been her sophomore year, correct?
Junior.
She was a junior year. Okay, she was a big
junior year. She became that was when she splashed onto the scene, because freshman year Paige was the talk, freshman AP Player of the Year. Sophomore year Paige faced against South Carolina. That was Aaliyah Boston's team. Don Staley, them, and they played in the Sweet 16, UConn and Iowa, like their, I think, freshman year. And then junior year, Paige was injured, and then that's when she just bursted on the scene with just pulling up from 35. And you're like, oh, God, who is this Steph Curry woman lookalike? Okay. Who is this?
She is a true star, and I think it's both. I don't want to say that. I think she's going to be a humongous star in the future, especially if she wins. She's obviously going to continue to get better, right? Barring injury, she's going to continue to rise as a star.
She'll be the betting favorite for MVP this season. It'll be either her or A'ja Wilson, the betting favorite for MVP.
Sure. And you know, we could talk about it one day, maybe when Steph Curry's career is over, but I don't think you get a Caitlin Clark without Steph Curry, right? I mean, their games are so comparable. I think Steph and Kyrie, I'd put Kyrie in this conversation. I think those two players in particular have done so much for women's basketball, whether they know it or not. I think you see so much of their and Kobe, absolutely.
Rest in peace, Kobe, but yep.
Absolutely. For all we say about what Kobe's done for the NBA, for the men's game, and it's crazy, Keenan. I mean, we're coming up on 5 years in just a few weeks here on Kobe's passing.
Can I say something real quick before you go on with that? We didn't even mention that in our 2020 chaos.
We didn't. That's crazy. And that's a core memory. That's a core memory from 2020.
That was the start. That was really the start of it.
That's what kicked it off.
Like we heard this like weird bat thing, and then it was like in the end of December in 2019, and then 2020 it was like, oh, Kobe, COVID, oh, okay, and then that just kicked it all off.
World ain't been the same since Kobe's untimely passing, but. Yeah, no, I don't hear Kobe's. I don't want to take away from Caitlin Clark, but I don't hear Kobe's name brought up enough with how much of an ambassador he was, not only beginning to be, but like was already to the women's game. You hear all the time about like the young stars in the league, like Sabrina, like Brianna Stewart, like A'ja, all the girls who are in college right now. They all reference
Parker
like
down to Haley Van Lith.
Yes, Candace Parker. There's clips of Kobe and Candace Parker working together. Like Kobe was given as much game to the young stars in the women's game, current stars in the women's game.
He was courtside when Diana Taurasi broke the points record. We hear him and Gigi. Rest in peace.
It's amazing stuff. It's amazing stuff. Yes, rest in peace of Gigi. Like he was as much of an ambassador for the WNBA as he was the NBA, which, you know, I feel like more stars should have been. And he really took, I mean, you know, the WNBA is literally under the NBA banner. And I'll say Tyrese Halliburton, he's shown up to the Fever games, and you see more and more of it now. Kevin Durant's big on the women's game, too. He's a big supporter of the WNBA.
He was watching Madison, even college, too. Madison Booker, he's going to, like, those Texas games. And, of course, I mean, obviously he's from Texas. He went to Texas, but, like, he's courtside at those games when he can be, because Madison Booker's also another person who in the league is going to be, she's got game. She's a true game.
It hurts my heart to say it because, you know, I think now would be when we would be in the middle of Gigi recruiting season right now. We'd be in the middle of following her senior season, and it really would have been a thing. And clearly, like, as we're having this conversation about Caitlin, clearly the game's in a right place. Clearly the game's taken off where it needs to be. But man, like, I really do think Kobe and Gigi would have been to the WNBA what the Mannings are to the NFL, where you just have this name, where you can identify and say, okay, they mean this to that. You know what I mean? So it's untimely. Ultimately, like I said, the WNBA is in a good place, in a great place, and the best place it's ever been. In large part to Caitlin, but like you said, Keith, part of that is Kobe. Part of that, that's not me just bigging up Kobe because, you know what? No, Kobe really was all about the WNBA, and probably, like, honestly, I would have to guess he would have I think he would have had some sort of role in the league in general by now. He was that much of an ambassador. He was that much in the forefront, and not just because his daughter would have been coming up either. Like, Kobe was one of them ones who genuinely appreciated every part of basketball. I mean, he was on his way. He had the Mamba Academy. He was famously on his way to coach the day he passed. So he was doing more than his part. Again, rest in peace to Kobe. damn, you got me sad now thinking about like what could have been and what happened. But
I think about that quite often.
It's crazy because again, 2020, that year itself, as you heard us say in the last podcast, 2020 seemed like an extremely long year, but all the events of 2020 seemed like yesterday. And for us to be 5 years removed from that, I think Gigi was in 7th or 8th grade, so she would have been closing her high school career, or
we
either
would
a
have seen her.
freshman.
We would know where she's going to play in college like now.
It's
and she
crazy.
probably would have been. It might have been USC. We might have gotten Gigi and Juju.
It could have been.
Because like obviously being in California, you might have got Gigi and Juju, or she would have went to UCLA with Lauren Betts, Kiki Rice, and other like I don't need
or UConn. She very much wanted to go to UConn.
UConn so with she would have just taken the mantle from Paige. Just say, hey, here you go, here you go. You and Sarah Strong go nuts.
And I would say this: if you're a basketball fan, you want to celebrate Kobe and Gigi, keep loving the game, keep playing the game. I don't care if it's pickup. I don't care if it's, AAU ball. I don't care if it's high school, whatever it is, keep playing the game. Keep teaching the game. If you're a coach, keep doing all of that. That's how you honor Kobe and Gigi, because that's exactly what they would want to do. And that's exactly what they would do. Back off that note to the MVPs though. Think we got it clear with Caitlin. I mean, she not only put the game in the forefront, she not only put the WNBA in the forefront, she not only has got us in a place where I don't want to use me as just this referendum for like who watches sports, who watches the NBA, but man, I've not only watched more WNBA, Keenan, than I ever have, but like made a point to watch WNBA. Like, no, I got to get off work at this time so I can be home at this time so I can watch Caitlin Clark. Heard more people that I wouldn't expect say, oh, no, I tuned into Caitlin Clark today. I had to watch her. Heard that more than ever. Heard more talk not only about Caitlin Clark, and not only about Angel Reese, but Sabrina Ionescu's of the world, about Asia Wilson. I heard more about Asia Wilson than ever before.
People know who Nafisa Collier's name is now, and she's been great forever. Don't get me wrong. Like she was great at UConn. She's been great in the league for a while, but like. And like when you see there was actually like legitimate talk about the Minnesota Lynx versus the New York Liberty and Breanna Stewart maybe getting away with calls. And like you said this a year and a half to 2 years ago, roughly, about coming up on 2 years ago. There is now hate in like, not hate, but like people have like true opinions that could be like love and hate on that, and when that happens, then you made it. Like, but before, like when people weren't really talking about you, it's like okay, like whatever. Like that questionable call maybe 5 years ago.
I said that 2 years ago. I said that 2 years ago.
You said that around.
I know I said that about the WNBA. I know I said it about the moving screen call in the UConn.
Yes, and I believe you said about the moving screen call, and I thought you said it roughly around the Caitlin Clark, like right after her junior year.
After this whole thing?
Yeah. I believe you said it then.
We probably definitely talked about that. So that's probably accurate. And that's true. I mean, that was a real thing in sports discourse at that time. People were really talking about Caitlin and Haley Van Lathe, and then Angel Reese on top of that when she did the whole ring thing in the championship game. And it's dope. It's dope. It's super dope. That's what college sports, specifically in the basketball realm, that's what it used to be. You used to have hated rivalries in men's college basketball. Men's college basketball will never matter the way it does. And whether it's 2 years, whether it's 3 years, as long as as long as women's college basketball Division I can keep their stars, they're going to be in a good space. And the WNBA is going to be in a great space because of that. Keenan, we often. No, money, yeah. I was just going to say money. Oh, go ahead. I'll let you go.
Sorry. No. I was just going to say the money aspect of NILs and like the money that they can make and the money that they're not making right now in the WNBA that should be changing in the collective bargaining ends in the end of 2025. You're going to try to get a new deal deciphered for 2026. So that probably is going to change. We'll see what kind of money they do get. But the fact that like Paige is probably making $3 million this year from Nike alone. Okay, why do I need to go to the WNBA when I'm like UConn making? I mean, she just had a GT hustle. She had her own colorway and her own version of the GT hustle our GT cuts rather. They were $189.99. We had them on our Dick's Sporting Goods website. They dropped at 10 on Saturday. They were sold out by 11. Like legitimately just
Star
sold
power.
out. 'Cause they were fire.
Star power.
The whole thing was fire. Like the shoes were fire, honestly. But like that's what I'm saying. Like Sabrina's shoes drop, and it's just a bunch of this. So obviously, where Sabrina's not in college anymore, but
she's got the
top 5 shoe. Top 5 shoe.
You could even say the hottest shoe in the game. It's a dope shoe on top of NBA players wear, WNBA players with it, and again, it's an actual dope shoe. It's not just
it's
name
and
recognition.
shout out to Kobe. It's kind of they took a little bit of the Kobe model from it. It's fine. I love
but everyone,
it.
Everyone has Kobe. There's been low top shoes before Kobe, but Kobe really was like, no, this is a shoe for guards, and yeah, Kyrie's took from that. The Ja Morant's take from that. Everything's going to be compared to Kobe, but I mean, it's kind of the same thing as everything before. Everything after the Air Jordan is going to be compared to the Air Jordan. You know what I mean? So anything low cut deserves to be directed towards Kobe, and because there's such limited colorways, really, or in some ways similar colorways depending on the shoe. They're going to be direct. Some are just going to look like Kobe, even if they're not intending to be looking like a Kobe.
No, honestly. And the Sabrinas for shoes I sell, I mean, I work at Dick's Sporting Goods, so I work at a pretty high retail store. We sell the Sabrinas for basketball shoes more than any of them. Some people will come in for Curry, some will order the Ants, some will get the LeBrons, KDs. KDs sell very well too, but Sabrina's shoes sell the most.
And much like LeBron and KD's got some low sneakers, but much like LeBron, Kobe played forever. So, I mean, at some point, your sneakers are either going to look recycled or they're, you know what I mean? Or they're going to look completely different than what they normally were. So, yeah, I mean, Kobe's got enough sneakers to where some sneakers are going to look like other versions. Compare that to De'Aaron Fox sneakers, which literally look like the KD 4s. Like, I look at them and I'm like, those look like the Kevin Durant 4s or 5s. I can't remember exactly, but they look exactly like them. So that's completely different. Back to it though, Keenan. I was gonna say, but we would say off air in the past how when Caitlin comes to the league and Paige comes to the league, it's gonna almost essentially be this, or in this case, maybe even Angel Reese. It's almost gonna be like this magic bird moment, and it really happened. And again, I want to transition to Kendrick right here after this, but you got Caitlin last year. She didn't turn out to be a bust. She did what she had to do. She had a great season. Asia had a great season on top of that, who's the best player in the league. Angel Reese did her thing, right? I mean, people make fun of her for missing layups, but she also put up stats, and she's a player.
Most double-doubles, consecutive double-doubles ever.
Sure. And she's a player. She's a player WNBA teams would want. You know what I mean? She's an impact player regardless. She was an all-star regardless. So Angel Reese is going to continue to push the game forward. Caitlin Clark, but like we've said, Ken, you got Paige Buchers. She'll be playing this spring and summer. She'll be in the WNBA. Like, she will be on game. We'll be watching her play. Juju will be next.
I'm looking to go to an Indiana Fever Dallas Wing game in Indiana. I've already looked at tickets for it, and I'm going to be doing that one. I'm actually, shout out to Paige. I'm going to Knoxville to see Paige play the Tennessee Volunteers. Tennessee Volunteers are 12-0 this season. They look real good, and obviously UConn is UConn, so I'm excited for that game.
When is that game?
That's February 6th.
Oh, so heading into college postseason time, damn near. That's nut crutch time in college basketball season.
And I just want to say this last point, and we're going to move to Kendrick. Bird and Magic, Angel Reese and Caitlin Clark. Paige is going to be kind of within that mix too. I thought Paige and Caitlin were coming out the same year. I called that maybe years ago. I literally thought, when I was in Florida, I thought that they were going to be I was going to be Magic Bird. End up being Angel Reese, whatever. Juju might be the Mike. And I'm not kidding. She signed a lucrative Nike deal.
She might be, but Caitlin already might be the Mike. That's the thing.
No, and that's fair. That's fair. But I mean by that is, obviously, Caitlin and Angel go into the league spikes. You get that, and then Juju hops into the league a few years later, like Mike did, and just takes the entire thing over. Her Nike deal's already crazy, especially for a woman. Asia just signed the most lucrative deal ever, but Juju was up there, and she's a sophomore at USC. Like she has the like, and so I'm just saying, like you have people already saying like true like NBA greats are like, yeah, she's next. Like, they get like,
She's
no, like,
nice. She's nice.
she's
She's got the
really
size.
she's
She's got
next.
the game. Um,
She got the swagger. She's been on like she was on podcast P with Paul George. Like not that that means the world, but like you already had like an NBA true NBA star. It was like,
you
yeah,
got
let's come on the podcast. Like
you've got
let's talk on
faces.
the pod.
You've got faces to names, which I feel like you've always had that in the WNBA. Regardless,
Mm-hmm.
I know there's a ton of people out there who will just, oh, who the fuck actually watches this? They'll do that to death, right? But the truth is, honestly, there's people out there who could see a Maya Moore and identify her as Maya Moore, Lisa Leslie, Diana
Sue
Taurasi,
Bird,
all the
even
same.
Taurasi.
It's all Brittany Griner, yes, all the same. People could identify these people. It's just people weren't watching the games, and it's because you didn't have as exciting players.
Yes.
The games might have been, nice to watch as far as a basketball fan, as far as like, okay, this is 82 to 80, crunch time, da da da. You still had recognizable players, whether it's Candace Parker, whether it's Brandon Stewart, all of them. But now, like, you just got the stuff that the NBA always had, and now the NBA tends to lack. I don't want to harp on the NBA too much. We did that a couple weeks ago, but you do have little built-in rivalries. You do have players who have their own style. You do have just drama. You got drama in the league, beef in the league. You have that, and you got, because of the WNBA dynamics, inter-team relationships, cross-team relationships. You do have stuff you just don't deal with in the NBA at large, or really any other sport. So the WNBA, it's going to be on the rise. I can't wait to see what their year is, Keenan. Maybe we'll talk about this later. But, I mean, we talk about 2025, which we are in now. It's crazy to think where we might be in 2030 in regards to the WNBA.
Absolutely. 2026 will be the next big year, and it's going to be in a euphoric state, and we're going to transition into Kendrick Lamar from that.
I would push back and say 2025 is going to be their next big year. I think
I agree, but I'm saying I just meant like when they change their
coming.
contracts and things like that. But it's going to be in a euphoric state, and things are going to go.
I do wonder. I do wonder if, because the NBA, I promise you, this will be the very last thing before we transition. The NBA in the fall, when they come back in October, they will be under the NBC umbrella. I mean, still on ESPN, but NBC will now get what was the TNT games. Amazon Prime will get that as well. WNBA was already being shown on Amazon Prime. I do wonder if WNBA falls under this window, like this coming season, if that'll be on NBC, or if they will be falling under the 2026 window. It makes sense if it's 2026.
I think it'd be the 2026 because within the collective bargaining, I had to do something with this on an I had to do something with this for like a school project, so I actually looked into like all of this stuff. Like I think it's going to be within the 2026 because the original bargain was supposed to go to 2028, but then they're like, nah. We're making too much money for this. we're too popular for this. We need to be making more money for what we're doing. So they're like, no, we're going to get out of it early. There should be new contracts coming. You'll see the player salaries very much increase. And so you'll see that. You'll see, obviously, they have the chartered flights now. You've got, I think there will be some overseas games that you'll see. A lot of different facilities, and
they're out of here. They're going to be.
They're going to take off. It's Magic Bird, and then it's going to be Juju's going to come in. It's going to be like the Mike Jordan coming in, kind of just even additional to that. Even though Caitlin Clark's really that, and then you're just going to have players. I've been saying this name for a while. Aaliyah Chavez has got next. When she goes to college, she's got next. There's a girl named Toby Fournier for Duke. She can actually dunk in games. There's a girl for South Carolina that dunked in games. But we're gonna move to.
We gotta taper this.
We're moving to Kendrick.
WNBA. We gotta go on to Kendrick. He's my co-MVP. You separated this, so I mean, he's essentially your co-MVP as well. Yeah. Who else would it have been in rap in 2024? He took everybody by storm. Not only on the Like That verse on We Don't Trust You by Future. I mean, I would say little did we know, but we forecasted it here on the Warner Brothers podcast. You can go to. You can go to, I believe it would have been that Monday after the drop. That was in shit. Was that March or April when the album dropped?
March.
So you can go to that mid-March Warner Brothers podcast episode with me, Keenan, Duke, and Brandon discussing this. And yo, I immediately, I'm not even gonna get to that actually. Let me keep it on Kendrick. Keep it on Kendrick. I will get to Future some other time. Keeping it to Kendrick though, man, off that Future album, going into the June, like it got quiet for a little bit. We had a J. Cole album drop where it seemed like there was going to be some static. Nothing really happened. Then we go to June where the beef just reignites. And maybe my timeline's off here. Maybe it was more May. I don't know.
It was Not Like Us came out May 4th.
That's right, because the concert was in Juneteenth. So May is really when it popped off, which makes sense. So we, April got a little quiet, but man, did May get crazy with his beef tracks from Kendrick, from Drake. The reason why he's MVP is because Kendrick won dominantly. Kendrick won via knockout in this Kendrick versus Drake. Drake was, I should say, the biggest star we had in the hip hop culture. Mm-hmm. It's funny to me, Keenan. This is going to be more about Drake than it is Kendrick, what I'm about to say. It's funny to me, all the stuff that maybe a Drake naysayer or maybe a Drake critic could have to say about Drake. Like, hey, maybe he's more pop than he is hip hop and rap, or hip hop and R&B. Like, I know he raps. I know he's got name your favorite rapper on a song. I know he features on name your favorite rapper on a song. I know he features on an R&B song of your biggest artist and he's rapping. I know all that, but man, something about this just seems more pop than it is rap, right? People have been saying that all of Drake's career. All of Drake's career, people have been saying that. Now it seems that Kendrick actually stepped out and said it, which other hip hop artists have said, but really put his name on it, really put a bullet behind it, on top of other things he said about Drake. Now it really seems like it stuck, which is crazy because, I mean, Drake's been prominent for sure since 2009 at least, right? So we're talking about 15 years of being in the limelight, not really falling off, being a prominent figure. Even fucking Keenan, when For All the Dogs dropped, right? That was just within the last year. There were still a lot of people. You'd have people who were real and say, okay, this isn't Drake's best project. This isn't what I want to hear from Drake. But you still had a lot of people at large who, like, if you said that, it was like, oh my God, you're Drake's biggest hater. You're this, you're that. You know what I mean? Like, it was still that. And that was, we're talking 6 months before the beef. Drake, he seems to have this protection that LeBron had, because there's valid criticisms that you could have, or critiques. I don't want to call them criticisms. There's valid critiques you could have about LeBron's career. And some people, or the public at large, I should say, will come for your neck about that when it's not necessarily hate towards LeBron. And that's been the case Drake's whole career. And he seemed to have this shield around him. And not only did Kendrick break it down, but he seemed like one of the few artists who could break it down. And
Pusha T obviously went out, like, obviously Pusha just had the one, he came from Nas, but came from Quentin, blah blah blah, written by like Nas, but came from Quentin. Like, he had this little shot there, like, you don't write everything, cool. And then he had the great, don't get me wrong, his story of Adidon was great. I'm not trying to make that sound like it was a bad diss track. It was great. It's just, it came from Pusha T. In hip hop circles, well, obviously one of the probably 20 greatest rappers of all time. Like, he's great. He's done a lot. He's real, like, he's put out I'm just saying, but like, and obviously like the mainstream circle, it's Pusha T. He's not really big in the mainstream circles. Kendrick's obviously been massive in the mainstream circles. So like, your regular everyday person's not going to really catch on to that. The only thing I was like, oh, Drake's hiding a kid. But then Drake just comes out with God's Plan and a couple other hits, and you're like, oh, whatever. It's fine. He's like, whatever. He was hiding a kid. He didn't do anything bad. Like, whatever. I guess he'll like his music. And then you have still people I still like his music. But then it's Kendrick, when you put such a bullseye on it, and Drake put Family Matters out, and then you get Meet the Grams, and you get Not Like Us, which honestly, like the song, hate this song. It's probably a top 5 diss track of all time for what it did. Mm-hmm. It's like, I mean, you compare it to songs like No Vaseline, Hit 'Em Up, Ether. I don't know why that one slipped my mind, but you compare it to songs like that because of what it did. So, I mean, yeah.
Let me say this about,
And then I'm going to talk about Kendrick for a moment, and then we can breathe, like breeze, quote unquote, through the rest of all this kind of stuff and talk about these moments and things. But yeah.
I mean, let me say this about Kendrick is the sick part about it, because you can't just say, yes, he dropped GNX, which was a great album. Or I very much enjoyed the album. Like I think it's top 3 for me in Kendrick's discography. Okay, great music. I love the album. Whatever, right? Besides that, aside from all that, you can't talk about this year without like the whole Drake factor. Okay, and what continues to like just, I love it. What continues to just like boggle my mind and what makes me think Kendrick's just a fucking sicko is, okay, he tried this back with Control. He called out everyone directly, including Drake, right? But he called out everybody, all right? And then in the years since, I mean, that was what, 12 years ago now? In the years since, people could say, oh, Kendrick's talking about Drake here. Drake's talking about Kendrick here. But no one could really allude to it because nothing was said directly. They, of course, have had other songs together. Like nothing was 100% concrete, right? Then we get word of this album coming from Future that might be directed at Drake, and we don't really know what's true or what's not. Then it seems to be the truth that Friday when it drops. Mm-hmm. Then it really seems to be the truth when, you know, when Kendrick's talking about fuck the big 3, it's just me. Okay, all right.
Probably your dog's getting buried. It's okay with all these 9s. We're going to see Pet Cemetery.
Then what's crazy about all that is then, okay, we find out, of course, from the Joe, and this is why I do love the Joe Budden podcast. Funny enough, Joe Budden's in the news on New Year's Eve for, I'll let y'all look it up why Joe Budden's in the news for some crazy shit. But one reason why I do love the Joe Budden podcast, I don't tune in as much as I used to, but they do give you like behind the scenes, or, you know, they're plugged into what's actually going on with some of these guys. And come to find out, Kendrick was supposed to be on First Person Shooter with J. Cole and Drake. And Kendrick takes this opportunity to jump on Future's album, to take shots at Drake, but not only to take shots at Drake, he knows that he's going to respond. He threw a little 1-2 at Drake, and Drake came back at him. And what none of us knew, and what especially Drake didn't know, was Kendrick had like 6 haymakers in the cut. He had a goddamn Uzi with him, ready to go. Like he was ready for all that.
He had a Draco.
Probably he had a Draco. He was probably ready for that last January 1st, Keenan. He was more than ready for this whole Drake thing. It was clearly premeditated. And I'm going to shut up because I probably have more to say. I'll say that. So
no, you're right. And I'm guessing like all of these things we could dive so far like into the topics and break everything down. But yes, Kendrick was prepared for this moment. He comes out with Like That. And then obviously Drake comes out with, you have J. Cole 7-Minute Drill, and then he just backs out. One of the worst moments of the year. We'll talk about worst moments. That's him backing out because it was like J. Cole was on this run for multiple years of being like, oh, he's not Lil Wayne run, but it was like every single feature he was on, he was killing it. And he was hopping on everybody's track. And you know what the outcome would be. About in 1,000, it's like people don't like rapping with me. He said it on a lot with 21 Savage. So like he was on everything, and he was whoever it was, and Matt Lil Durk, 21 Savage, Drake, anyone who could possibly try to rap with him, he was out rapping all of them. And then you have the big bad wolf, you have the boogeyman pops out, and sometimes you gotta pop out and show, like you just sometimes gotta pop out. And J. Cole put out 7-Minute Drill, then at a concert it was like, no, that was whack. And then Push Ups comes out, and then Tailor Made comes out, and I think Tailor Made what really set Kendrick off, like the final straw. It was like he was gonna put out all this stuff, and he was prepared. But I think like the fact that he like Tupac is literally like Kendrick's like angel, and the fact that you did anything that involved Tupac just it took it to a new level. It truly did, because he mentioned it in multiple songs. It was like, don't bring up his name. Like, you don't deserve Tupac rolling is great. Like, you're not doing that. And so then obviously Euphoria comes out, 616 comes out, and then Family Matters comes out, Meet the Grams comes out 20 minutes later, Not Like Us comes out, and then you have the Not Like Us video that was massive. You had the Pop Out that was massive, and then you've got now GNX, and then you're gonna have the Super Bowl, and like all of it together. You just have Kendrick, who had just such an outstanding year. It is great to have Kendrick back. He's never been this popular, but it's like his closest. He had the ability to be like this after Good Kid, Mad City, because he was on some features after that. Because Good Kid, Mad City comes out in 2012, I believe that's October 2012 that comes out. You got 2013, you've got Control. 2013, you got the BET Cipher where he was taking shots at everybody there too, where you thought it was directed at Drake. And then he was on features, he was there, and then he just shuts up for 2 years and then comes out with a masterpiece. But shuts up for 2 years and comes out with a masterpiece that's not a commercial masterpiece. Like if he would have kept on features and then put out Damn in 2015, he could have reached the Drake exact status, in my opinion. But that's a whole nother conversation for another time. But Kendrick's at his peak right now, and he's only going to ascend. He's going to have the Super Bowl where he's going to kill it because he's the best performer in hip hop today. And then he's going to go with SZA after he drops a deluxe probably of GNX with more music. SZA just dropped a deluxe, so she has more music prepared for the tour. So that
I don't
tour
see
is
Kendrick
going to be
dropping.
great.
I don't see Kendrick dropping a deluxe. Honestly,
I see him drop. I think there's more music to come. I
feel like if he's dropping more music, it's going to be a full project.
It might be a full album.
And if I had to give you a prediction, I'll save it because we're doing predictions after. So I'll save it. I'll save that for my predictions.
But that's all I have for Kendrick. I think that we've done, and then I've just got some moments I want to talk about and things too. But like that's Kendrick.
Sure, Keenan. I actually, in the spirit of yesteryear, which is now 2024, I have a top 4 moments and I have a worst 4 moments. So bottom 4, top 4. Would you like to celebrate first, or would you like to hate first?
Let's celebrate first.
Do you want me to give them to you in order? Do you want to go mano y mano? How you want to do this?
Just give all of yours, and then I'll give all of mine.
Okay, I'll give an explanation for each. Okay, and this is not necessarily in order. In the spirit of what we just talked about, when We Don't Trust You dropped, that was a fucking moment. That took me back to various years in hip hop, but I hadn't had that feeling in rap, in hip hop, in the longest time. Not even Pusha T and Drake's beef brought me there because it was so short lived. Not only did Future's album, did it seem to be completely directed at Drake, and I think Metro Boomin has since said like, "Oh, you really think we made an album completely directed at Drake?" No, we did not. And maybe he's telling the truth. But I'm going to tell you from the public, it does not seem that way. It seems completely directed at Drake, especially when you involve the Kendrick factor into it. But on top of that, Keenan, what a fucking dope album. One of my favorite albums of the year, if not my favorite album of the year. It was incredibly produced. Future got busy on it. Obviously, we know Kendrick got busy on it. You name the features, they got busy on it. To me, Metro was the star of the album because of just the incredible beats on the album. But that Friday, Saturday, Sunday, Keenan, into the anticipation for his next album, the part 2 of it, in the anticipation of Drake's response, in the anticipation of where does J. Cole lay in this. We had not had a feeling like that in hip hop, in music, in quite some time, but especially in the rap game. It was such an energy rush. Like all my conversations that Friday were geared around this album, around these artists, into the next week, into the coming weeks. And again, I mean, I said it that night. I posted on my story. I said it on this podcast. That was the best hip hop album of the last 5 years. And I believe I said it on here. I said, watch what it's going to do. Watch what it's going to do for this summer in hip hop. Lo and behold, I was right. Kendrick delivered. Drake to some degree delivered just by responding. We got a J. Cole album out of it, whether that was planned to be dropped or not. Future since has dropped 2 dope projects since then. We Still Don't Trust You, and then his mixtape Pluto, which is technically a mixtape, but I mean, is it really in this day and age when it's on streaming, when it's on Spotify? we've just gotten so much dope music from that. We've gotten so much content from that. I mean, we were talking about it with Raja the other day. Drake's still doing streaming where he's alluding to Kendrick and the beef on it. Like, it's been a half year long thing plus of this beef. And yeah, we've gotten not only incredible content, but incredible music. And I'm forever grateful for that. I'm also going to include a couple other album drops on here, just briefly. This is still on the part one. These are not my other moments, but to go with that Future album drop, when J. Cole dropped, that also felt like a moment because it felt like some sort of response, which it was. We got 7 Minute Drill. And then obviously the Kendrick surprise drop that we got, just a few weeks ago. That also felt like a moment. So all three of those in conjunction, really though, spearheaded by the We Don't Trust You album. So that's number one. Number two, I have UFC 300, which few sporting events, I would say other than the Super Bowl, truly live up to the hype of what it's supposed to. UFC 300 was supposed to be the biggest night in UFC history, and it very well might have been that. You got two classic moments coming from that night, from those events. You got the Max Holloway knockout, him pointing to the center of the octagon, knocking out Justin Gaethje, and a match where a lot of people thought he was going to lose. You got Alex Pereira knocking out Jamal Hill seconds after getting a low blow, pushing off the ref, and just the next strike knocks out Jamal Hill, finishes him. That's two bona fide classic moments on a card that featured numerous great fights. There was, I'd have to look at it, but in total, there was probably 14 fights. All of them mattered. All of them were at the least entertaining. And then on top of that, you get two classic moments. That's hard to top. And a night that was supposed to live up to all that, by the way. So bravo by the UFC. Another great year for the UFC. My third moment, Keenan, and again, these aren't necessarily in order, but my third moment that I have written down, the gold medal game, USA versus France. Steph in the night. I mean, come on. That was everything we could have asked for from Steph Curry, especially since he did not have, a great Olympics before the Serbia game. Semifinal and the final, he more than delivers. I'm sure that will be coming up in your topic, so maybe I'll respond. And then fourth, Keenan, and I kind of already alluded to it in my first moment. That was the weekend where we really got Drake and Kendrick going back and forth. That was an insane night. I will never forget it.
The Clippers were getting dog walked and embarrassed on their home floor in Game 6 by Kyrie Irving and the Dallas Mavericks. And then Family Matters drops. And then Not Meet the Grams drops. And then the next day.
Time out.
616 drops
in LA drops the morning. Kendrick
Dude.
starts it off that morning. And this is already after we've had Taylor Made and a couple other ones. I don't know if it was a week before, 2 weeks before.
Euphoria already came out. But I'm just the vivid memory for me is I thought the Clippers discourse for NBA media was going to be oh, they are something, but literally wasn't talked about because no one cared. It didn't matter. It legitimately, and I even because ESPN networks were there was a beef that went on. There was a beef that went on. It just didn't matter.
You said that so nervously.
There's a beef that went on. It doesn't this game doesn't actually fully matter. We'll care about sports in a couple days.
I mentioned how Future, that album restored the feeling. That night restored. I mean, that brought me back to the fucking 2000s to just real beef, because not only was it crazy. I mean, again, Kendrick dropped that initial, was 616?
Yep.
I don't know if he actually dropped that at 616 LA time or what, because it was in the morning. That much I remember. So we wake up, again, this is probably 2 weeks removed from Taylor Made Freestyle. Kendrick's responding. It's oh shit, Kendrick's officially back. What's going to happen? Little did we know, okay, Drake, like you said, Family Matters, which was a super dope song. I love that song from Drake. Drake was fucking
that second verse. Oh my God, I'm not sure he's rapped it that well in 10 years.
Drake was motivated. He dropped a video for it.
We'll pop the ledge and let the door slide.
He hit Keenan. He hit, yeah, he hit every mark you want. right? Like he did the Drake playbook. He had the van from Good Kid, Mad City and the shit too, right? Like every playbook you'd want from Drake, he hit it that night. And then what happens 20 minutes later? No, Kendrick's got not only a response, but he's got a gutter response to it. Like it was insane. It was
And feel how you feel
insane.
about Meet the Grams. Like you might not like it doesn't like have to last with everything. What it did was diffuse everything Drake did that night. So then the next day was open. Like, cause like say Meet the Grams doesn't come out that night, people are still like, oh my God, how's Kendrick gonna respond? What's gonna happen? But Meet the Grams comes out that night, so people are like already like Family Matters went from being an A+ to like A-. Not because the songs but any different, but literally because like Meet the Grams comes in and you're like, he's hiding another kid? What?
And that got completely lost because we didn't even give a fuck that was completely untrue. It was just crazy that
it didn't matter.
It was so crazy that Kendrick,
hey Adonis.
It was so crazy that Kendrick was not only talking wild crazy, wild reckless. Not only was that crazy, it was the fact that again, he stepped on the Family Matters record, but also he alluded to it. He said, Drake, you got a mole in your camp. I know what's coming, this and that, and then proved it. I do want to say, let me just review real quick my top 4 moments of 2024. The Future album drop, which, again, in conjunction with that, the J. Cole drop and the Kendrick drop, which the Kendrick drop seems separate from all that because it was standalone. It was in the fall. J. Cole really seemed like a birth of, or, you know, in conjunction with that Future album. It seemed like a response. But all 3 of those in general, just because all 3 of those drops seemed like a moment in hip hop. 2 being UFC 300, just honestly the best sporting event I watched this entire year. It lived up to all the hype and more. Alex Pereira, just their best star since Conor, truly. And he had an insane 2024 and it's setting up for sky's the limit for him in 2025 and beyond, even given his age, even him being in the late 30s. The gold medal game, USA, France, that was a moment. Steph Curry again. And my favorite thing, I said the least about this moment out of the other 4. My favorite part out of all this, I don't know if you saw this compilation, Keenan, when it happened, but they released like all the different languages reacting to Steph Curry's barrages of threes. I remember one. I don't remember if it was China or France. One of their, it was probably France. But one of their commentators was literally like calling him God, or was like, they were literally like, "There's no way this is possible." Like they were at the same time horrified, but also giving him his respect. Because I mean, you know, we get to see it damn near every night. We've definitely seen moments like that throughout his career, but you know, if you're global, if you're in France, if you're in China, if you're in Serbia, if you're wherever, you're not necessarily seeing it or appreciating it the way we are in real time. So they got to see it in full force. Steph dug into, man, a part of his bag that we just have not seen in a little. I mean, you know, he went for 8 and 26 seconds the other day on Christmas, but he went to 2016 levels of Steph in that gold medal game. It was incredible. What a moment. And then my last moment being that illustrious beef weekend in May, I believe it was, as Keenan said, between Drake and Kendrick, just going back and forth. It even continued into that Sunday. Drake dropped The Heart Part 6 that Sunday. Like, so we got a full weekend of, you know, what used to be 2 weeks or maybe a month worth of beef tracks going back and forth. We got that in a weekend between the 2 biggest hip hop artists of the last 15 years, probably. So what a year it was in music. What a year it was in hip hop. What a year it was in sports. Those are my top 4 moments.
And for me, I'm going to kind of bounce that because obviously Drake and Kendrick was one of my moments of the year. And another thing that got stepped on too by Meet the Grams was the fact that Drake put out the Buried Alive interlude, which was really good. He was really good because he dropped it on Instagram and no one knew about
that again. I never would have thought about that again.
No one knew it. It got stepped on and it was amazing. It was a really cool way to flip what obviously Kendrick's best verse on, or one of Kendrick's best verse on a feature versus Honestly Ever, and one of the best verses on Take Care. So he flipped that around on him, and I thought that was really creative, and that would have been like the icing on the cake from Family Matters. But Meet the Grams literally Meet the Grams was the most impactful song. I think Euphoria was the best song. Impactful in the sense of like within the realm of the beef. No, Not Like Us is going to last longer, and it's going to be.
Time out, because I didn't even mention Not Like Us. Did Not Like Us drop later on that Saturday or that Sunday?
Yeah, literally what happened, 6:16 in the morning, Family Matters, Buried Alive interlude drops, gets stepped on by Meet the Grams. The next day on Saturday, Not Like Us comes out.
That's right.
And because Meet the Grams
that was definitely the most impactful, because that was the kill shot.
Sorry.
I get what you're saying. I completely get what you're saying though with Meet the Grams, because that effectively ended. Drake had to come back with something crazy if he were, you know what I mean?
Meet the Grams, I more so meant within, like, if you're talking about a fight, like just a literal like boxing match, he was on the ropes. That punch was so important to what happened, because if Family Matters gets to breathe for the night and the next day, then Not Like Us comes out, doesn't have the same kind of impact. So it has great impact, but it doesn't have the same kind of impact, because I already felt like Kendrick felt like he was up again. He already felt he was up again, and Drake dropped a nuke, and he already felt like he was up again. So then Not Like Us literally was like Mike Tyson knocking somebody out, and so it was over with. But that there, I added Kendrick's really the moment, like a moment, because the pop out, I think that was a phenomenal moment. GNX coming out was another moment. So really Kendrick Lamar, that's a moment. Paris is one of my top moments of the year. This is not ordered. I don't have an order really, but Paris is a top moment. Steph Curry and LeBron, obviously the Serbia game and the Paris, the final game against France. I was going nuts in the back stock of footwear, because like I had to work on the day, but like it was just like I was going insane back there, just watching it on my phone, going nuts. Obviously Noah Lyles wins the 100. Simone Biles goes insane and has one of the best gymnasts, especially at that age. She's my age, and that gymnasts don't do that. The WNBA actually had a close game, and Kalia Copper came through at the end, so shout out to that. Women's March Madness, I think that was one of my moments too, because you got South Carolina versus Iowa, LSU Iowa, UConn Iowa, UConn USC. For me, because I'm a big solid college basketball fan, you got Stanford Iowa State. Cameron Brink, who ended up going 2 in the draft, she gets into foul trouble, and Kiki Ariafin goes insane and matches Audie Crooks, who had 48 points. Either had like 41 points in like the round 2 on like super efficient shooting. It was like 18 at 23 or something like that. So a really good freshman and sophomore now. I'll name a couple honorable mentions afterwards, just because I think they deserve to be mentioned. But then I have 2 more moments that I really want to mention within the grasp of everything. Loaded Lux versus Rum Nitty, to go into a little bit of a different bag. That was the best battle that I've seen in 3 years, and one of the best battles, honestly, I've maybe ever watched. It was just such a display of 6 rounds of excellence from Rum Nitty and Loaded Lux. It's on YouTube now, so if anyone has the time just to sit down and watch it, you get to just watch high level rapping for 45 to 50 minutes from these guys, from these gentlemen. So shout out to both of Lux and Rum Nitty, because that battle was immaculate. And then for me too, the WNBA finals, I thought that was the perfect cap. I mean, obviously you got Aces, Liberty, but I think that was a perfect cap on the year. You had the Sabrina iconic shot in game 3. You had moments in game 4. You had the discourse in game 5. You had
some WWE ass refs in game 5 is what you had.
Yeah, I know. So like you had like it's a memorable moment. Like you're gonna remember, like thinking back to that. Like you can think bad moments. Like you can think of a bunch of bad moments. The bad call on Pippen in 94, 95, or 93, 94.
The fucking WNBA commissioner had the New York City skyline on her dress as she's handing out the awards. Like,
so things like that where it's crazy. Like, I know, but so those are all my moments. I think that those are my standout moments. I'm gonna give just a couple quick ones that I want to just. Ohtani 50-50.
Okay.
The fact that, like, for baseball, I think baseball had a little bit of a moment this year, because I think Ohtani just showed, like, obviously a superstar. Aaron Judge was going nuts this year too. And then you get the Yankees Dodgers in the World Series. Unfortunately, that series wasn't as good as it could have been. But You had Yankees Dodgers, which was obviously the most historic finals that you could or I keep saying finals, World Series you could possibly have. Freddie Freeman 6 straight games in the World Series with a home run, which is a record. So like the MLB had a lot. Overtime Super Bowl victory for the Chiefs. That's always going to be something big, an overtime victory. I know we didn't mention it, but like
I've got to respond to both of those.
that's fine. I'm just naming some moments, and then you can. And then I have one music one, and then one Cat Williams and Shannon Sharp. That was a moment. That absolutely, that interview was a moment. And honestly, Cat Williams laid out the entire year. The truth's going to be revealed, and truth got loud. So shout out to him for that. And then a personal more moment for me was the emergence of Doechii. Like she got so many now nominees for like the Grammys in 2020, but I think that her album is one of the top albums of the year. It's on my list for top albums of the year when we put that graphic out, but that would be my other kind of moment. So I think those are great. I mean, obviously like UConn went back to back, the Celtics won the championship, now they have the most. Like those are still important things that happen, but to me those aren't massive, like as big of moments.
Let me shout out Declan Stefanski, former NEK Monstar, because he was on the Doechii train super early.
Mm-hmm.
He was telling me early on in the year, like, "Yo, check out Doechii," and I did, and I'm like, I don't really know if I get it. And to her credit, her album, from the stuff I'd heard that she was putting out then to her album, which was like more rap, super dope. Super dope. And like you said, she immediately got her flowers after that. People were definitely on the Doechii train, especially given like what your mainstream women hip hop artists look like right now. So she's definitely a breath of fresh air.
Her and Tiara Whack are two that are a breath of fresh air to me.
That's a name I have not heard in a while, Tiara Whack. Holy shit.
She had an album come out this year. It's actually it's one of my top albums of the year too.
My
albums are phenomenal.
My two response. So I want to respond, and I said this when it happened about the Chiefs, and I said it that night. We did a reaction pod. I mean, I like to think I'm up on the NFL. I like to think I'm up on my sports in general. I knew they had changed the overtime rules in general, just like they tweak them here and there. It's still insane to me every time I think about it that you can be down in overtime and still be able to finish your drive. As I've mentioned, I don't watch like ESPN or anything like that anymore. I hope people were making a big deal about that on there. I was not familiar with that rule. Overtime's pretty damn universal all around, man. Like get that.
They changed it in the playoffs to get Bills Chiefs
which was crazy, right? If you want to, I think both teams should have a chance. Just that, right? Chiefs. Let's keep it Chiefs Bills. Chiefs get a spot in overtime. Bills should have a chance to respond. If they don't respond in the allotted time, that's it. The fact that you can carry over, that is not the spirit of overtime at all in any event. Basketball, football, whatever. You should, once the time's over, once overtime period is over, it's over. So yeah, when I come to find out that, the Chiefs, after the 15 or 10 minutes is up, they still got additional time to finish their drive. That was absolutely insane to me. It's still insane to me. I would like to think they'll one day change it, but they probably won't. And it's still better than sudden death, even though sudden death had its own thrills to it. I do at least think each team should have a chance to compete in overtime. But the fact that you can carry over then to a second overtime while the other team's up or down, fucking insane to me. Absolutely insane to me.
I honestly, and shout out to college football. They had a 9 overtime game this year. It was, but I think that I like their overtime personally. It's team gets
I like it, and I like it for college too. I like it for college. I wouldn't necessarily love it in the NFL because they start from the 30 or the 25.
Yeah,
correct?
They start from the 25. That one team gets it, the other team, then they flip it around. They do that again, and then they get to a 2-point conversion, and then a 2-point conversion. What they're trying to do is basically eliminate the fact that like these games continue to go down like that because like essentially in the Super Bowl. Like if the Chiefs scored and the 49ers scored, basically would be the next score wins. I know that would be how you kind of would go with it, but so I get what you're saying. I like it for college, and I agree. I don't think I would love it in the NFL, but I do like it for college. One thing I'm actually going to talk about that when we talk about football next
Okay.
There's a little rule that I think
My
that would actually be beneficial in the NFL.
my quick response to the MLB. This is just super quick. We were recording while Game 5 was going on, and you gave us an update. You looked on your phone. You're like, oh, like Yankees had a bunch of errors. Oh, Aaron Judge muffed a routine fly ball, and I'm thinking like that's the worst of it. You know what I mean?
Mm-hmm.
I get off here, and we didn't talk about this after when we recorded next, so I'm just gonna say it now. We get off here. I go turn on the game. The game's still on. It's like seventh or eighth inning at this point.
Mm-hmm.
But then they review the fifth inning where all this shit popped off. And the worst
Mm-hmm.
of it was, man, when who's the Yankees first baseman?
Oh my goodness gracious! I cannot.
Whoever it is, doesn't even matter. Him retrieving the ball and literally like, yo, I haven't played baseball, I haven't watched the MLB in years aside from sparring.
Anthony Rizzo.
That's right, Rizzo. Rizzo fields the ball, and then the pitcher doesn't cover first. That's as routine. I saw that and I lost my mind. I absolutely lost my mind. I wasn't rooting for the Yankees. I just lost my mind fundamentally.
They lost the game in the fifth inning.
And you will hear me. There was stuff from this past NFL weekend that I had no rooting interest in these games. And there was moments where I was absolutely pulling my hair out, gouging my eyes out, because I cannot believe some of these coaches and their clock management. But you'll hear that later on in the week. We record and we review week 17 and preview week 18. There's stuff that, like, if it happened in a Little League game, if it happened in a Pop Warner game, if it happened in junior hoop, I would lose my mind. And it happens not only maybe in college basketball, but in the pros, in pro basketball, pro football, it's insane. I can't believe it.
So that was the end of our top moments there. If you go to the next video there, that will be right there for you. You'll be able to see our worst moments. You'll be able to see some predictions for 2025 as well. And Kyle and I just getting into a couple topics that we love to do because we can't help ourselves.
You'll get to see me being an elite hater.
Absolutely.